Hey, welcome to the podcast. I'm Ronan.
And I'm Hugo.
And this is Sunday String of Consciousness. So, we're exchange students in a pandemic in Japan. What's that like?
I am moving forward with my music, universal language, expressing things of value. And if there's some people who want to listen, they're welcome. I'm just like the birds, they sing. Those who like will listen, and those who don't have to.
So, why did we want to come here in the first place? I know what my motivations were. I'm not quite so familiar with yours. What was your thought process during the beginning period of, hey, I think I want to go to Japan?
The first time I actually came to Japan was 2017. I was with my family. That was just vacation for 9 days in Tokyo. But ever since then, I wanted to come back to Japan. And I had a neighbor that had done an exchange year.
Did they go to Japan?
No, he'd been to Denmark. But I had always this thing in the back of my head, like, oh, it's possible to go as a student in wherever you want to go. So why can't I do that with Japan?
Yeah, it really is prime time at this point in our lives, just before heading out to college and whatnot. I'm not sure what it's like in France, but in America, there's a common practice called a gap year, where students fresh out of high school will just take a year to go travel the world before they go to college. And that's somewhat what I envisioned my trip as.
Oh yeah, we have that too, but because of animes and manga, I think I wanted to experience Japanese high school.
Okay, so you'd seen the experience. You didn't want to go as just like a tourist. You really wanted that high school experience.
Yeah. So what were yours?
So it started around August. I'd say August or September of 2019. It had been sort of, again, an idea in the back of my head for quite some time. But I wasn't exactly comfortable with the idea of living with a host family. For some reason, I found that quite intrusive.
Yeah, especially because the family aren't paid, and
yeah, that's we're not sure so much about other exchange programs, but this is a completely voluntary thing for them. And just for that, if you've ever been a host family or an exchange student, good job, y'all. This stuff ain't easy for either party. But I was a month into my junior year of high school, 11th grade, and I was burnt out. I was not feeling it. And I just knew I've got to go somewhere. I've got to do something different. And I've always wanted to go to Japan. And so at that point, I decided, well, let's give it a shot. And so the process began. Speaking of, what did the application process look like in France? Was there any special paperwork?
That was long. That was really long. And I'm really thankful to my parents that helped me a lot on those paperwork, because there was so much things to do. I don't think I could have figured out all this stuff by myself.
Yeah, definitely not. I could never have done that by myself either.
Yeah, the process was really long, but then we had to wait to know if we're basically accepted to come to Japan.
Yeah, because there wasn't just visa paperwork. There wasn't just getting into the country. There was the initial process of, okay, you want to be an exchange student. Now you need to apply for the program itself and be selected out of all their candidates. And I think I got my spot after somebody dropped out of theirs. And so for a while, it was very uncertain whether or not I would actually be able to go, because I was on a waiting list instead of the you're accepted, you're potentially going list. And that was quite stressful. But where were you when you were accepted? Describe that day.
Actually, that's a pretty funny story. I was waiting for the results in August of 2019.
Okay, so you were already waiting for your results the day I came up with the idea that I wanted to go.
Yeah, and so we were in vacations in Thailand at this point, and like obviously I had no 4G, so I would just check my emails like every time we could have Wi-Fi, like in a cafe, in Starbucks, in a restaurant, in the hotel room, like everywhere I could find Wi-Fi. I would just check my emails to know if I was accepted for the program or not. That was stressful.
And where were you when you finally found that email?
I received email like midway during the trip. I was in another room with my parents, and like we were like really, really happy because we'd done so much paperwork to just apply for it. Like knowing I was accepted was such a
relief. I can imagine having done all that paperwork and finally getting in. I had done the same thing. I had obsessively checked my email like once every day. Not every day, but once every 12 hours or so. And I finally got it as I was sitting in English class. It was fifth period English, halfway through, and I just felt a little buzz in my pocket, and I took out my phone and I read, oh, this is from my exchange program. What's it about? I open it up, and the top text is, you're accepted. And I just went, yes. And I went around and I told all my friends, and I told anybody that would listen, and I told my teacher, and I was like, I'm going to Japan in March. Well,
not exactly.
Corona. Wow. Nobody really saw that on our 2020 bingo card.
Yeah. Like I've been told I wasn't coming to Japan just 2 weeks before the departure date.
Yeah, they did the exact same thing to me. That was the day I was going to go take I don't know if there's a French equivalent, but in America, you at a certain age, you are able to test out of high school. By means of a GED test or the HiSET exam. And on that day at 12:30 p.m., I was supposed to go take that test so I could drop out of high school and only have to think about my exchange program. And a half hour before that, I got the email, you're not going. That sucked. That was a bad day.
Yeah, mine was bad as well, and I was still going to school at this point. And like 3 days after, we've been under lockdown, and I really thought the lockdown would last a few weeks, and it's been like 4 months.
Yeah, everybody did. Everybody thought, we're going to pull through this, especially in America, because there was the knowledge like, okay, our president is, well, he's not exactly the greatest, but surely this can be the one thing that really brings out the whole leader in him. And he might not be the best, but he can at least cobble something up to get us out of this. Well, that didn't exactly happen. You guys had a really strict lockdown in France. I read about it.
Yeah.
Our government really just went, it's a battle royale now. No, go fight over toilet paper. That was it.
Yeah. Strict lockdown wasn't a ton of fun either. Like I've been out of my house like 3 times in 4 months. And we also fought over toilet paper.
I realize that scarcity really drives things, but wow. Yeah, I remember some entrepreneur, some like 20-something-year-old kid bought a toilet paper factory and had it in production fast enough, had all the machinery, had all the workers, brought it up to speed in something like 2 to 3 weeks, and made millions off of just toilet paper, from not having a toilet paper factory to owning a toilet paper factory just in that period of scarcity alone. So right about now we're in March and things are uncertain. Virus is flaring up worldwide. We're starting to see the real, I guess, beginning of impacts. People are having to stay home. And during this time, there starts to ferment some real unrest, not just in America, but worldwide.
I actually have a funny story about how we could have seen it coming. Actually, my first flight to come to Japan, when I was still supposed to come in March, was supposed to stop by China before coming to Japan. And that was like around December. So like that was right the time where it was a thing only in China. And so they changed the flight because there was Corona in China. And we're like, no, that's just a thing in China. Like, no, that we have a direct flight. Everything is going to be okay.
I'm going to say, as an American, you're really, really supposed to actively dislike the Chinese government and everything they do. But you got to give them credit. They built a hospital in a week. How do you do that?
That's efficiency.
That is, I mean, it might have fallen apart by now, but who knows? Yeah, so there was that first period of, wow, it's only in China. Oh, wait, now it's spreading. Can you remember like the first days of the French pandemic response and whatnot?
No one actually took it was a thing until we had lockdown. There was some cases, we heard that in the news, but we're like, that's okay. That's like 20 cases. Everything is going to be all right. And then just went under lockdown.
Yeah. we had a similar thing of, oh, it's only in China. It's just there. We're all right. Oh, wait. Now it's in, I think it was Oregon or Washington or something like that. But there's only like one case. We're all right. And then the next week is like, okay, maybe there's a few cases more. There's like 20 or 30 or something, but it's still only up there. And then, stuff progresses day by day. And then it hits like the major population centers. It hits Los Angeles. It hits New York. You just didn't leave your house because of how bad it was hitting everywhere else. It was an uncertain, novel time.
Yeah, but I just can't imagine how weird it was to not have a strict lockdown, because it meant like there was people still going out. Right.
There were protests against any lockdown measure that state governments tried to implement, because the federal government did not a whole lot. The pandemic response area of the CDC, it had been dissolved several years prior. So we didn't actually have like a team in our disease control center to combat a pandemic. So people were just making it up on the fly. And the states tried to implement, mask measures and lockdown measures and tried to restrict movement. But Americans are fiercely independent to a fault, where it's, I ain't got it, so I can't give it to you, so I'm going to go do what I want.
Yeah, it was way easier for French government to just have a global lockdown because we don't have those states and federal governments, and there's just one government. If they say we go in lockdown, then the entire country goes in lockdown. So I think that was just way easier for French government to take any measures like this.
The people listened, but were there any times when they didn't? Did you, on the topic of unrest, there was, in America, there was the George Floyd protests, and then that spiraled into a reignition of the entire Black Lives Matter movement. Did you, in France, were there any similar protests?
Oh, nothing like in the US. Like we could see every day on the news the protest. I think we had some protests, but like that's nothing near what you had.
And just seeing a lot of the responses to it, both from the president himself and police forces, it just really, really annoyed me, upset me even. It was not good. I have not the greatest faith right now in governance.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Did the lockdown impact your mental or physical health in really any way? I mean, of course it did, but in what ways would you describe?
Actually, the hardest thing for the beginning of the lockdown was to know that I wasn't coming to Japan, and add that to not doing anything all day and staying in my bedroom. The only thing I could think about was like, I waited the past 9 months since I knew I was coming, and I'm just right here in my bedroom in France, and I can't even go out or do anything. And I have no idea when I'm gonna come to Japan and if it's ever gonna be possible at all. Yeah, the fact of being in lockdown wasn't affecting me alone, but the cancellation of the exchange year was like killing me.
Yeah. After waiting that long, it was definitely that sensation of, oh man, I almost made it. Because it was, 2 weeks until we were supposed to leave? Almost having escaped. For the entire duration of the pandemic, it has been safer here in Japan than virtually anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, and even right now, I feel safer in Japan than I would be in France.
Of course, there are the issues of, communication, interaction, whatnot, but haven't got to worry about the virus so much.
Yeah, and we can do a lot of things also, because even yesterday I've been to cinema in Japan, and you can't do that in France, and you can't go to restaurants, and you have a curfew at like 7 p.m.
It's possible to go to restaurants and maybe movie theaters right now in America, but nobody's all too happy about it because, things are still quite bad over there, despite the massive vaccination push. But even despite that, there has been, the frequency of states reopening and closing businesses and whatnot just makes it so that, now the virus has spiked in this state and people move between states. So now it's spreading to other states and there's not really like a real response. But just being able to go to the store and go grocery shopping, out to a restaurant, or even just outside and see people is an experience that I never expected to be novel, but now is.
Yeah, in Japan, I never feel in danger because of Corona. Like, of course, everyone have masks. Of course, you're gonna sanitize your hand before going to restaurant, before entering a store. But it don't feel anywhere near the feeling I had in France. Like, I just feel safe.
Yeah, it's a pervasive feeling too. It's almost like you can take time to just unwind and watch it from a distance instead of actively living through it. Because I don't know if it's unfair to say, but I feel like many of the people in the country don't really understand just how bad it was. It's still not over. And that's the thing to think about is it's still there, but it's almost become an afterthought. It's easy to forget there's a pandemic here.
Yeah, I just don't feel like we're under pandemic, except for the masks. I mean, you can do pretty much what you want in Japan. There is no restriction because of COVID, so just don't really feel like there is COVID anyway. And yeah, they have no idea how bad it was in France or in America. Like, we've been under a strict lockdown, and they call what they had in Tokyo a lockdown. That was nothing a lockdown.
Yeah. It amazes me. It truly does. But at one point, we eventually did make it. I mean, we're here now. So at one point, we did receive news. Hey, your program is off, but now it's back on. We're able to send you guys.
It's been really unreal. They told us we could maybe go the 26th of November. And like, I had to fight against AFS to go there. But like, until a few weeks ago, I was like, yeah, chances are it's going to be canceled again.
That's what I felt as well, is I've got my hopes up again, but I'm not really sure because, well, if they canceled it once, they can very much do it again. But it happened. The day came. What was that like?
Day of leaving France. Well, we were still under lockdown when I left France. So we had to fill in paperwork just to go to Paris to take the plane so that we won't get arrested by the cops, basically.
Okay. Oh, wow. All right. Were you stopped at all?
No, we haven't been stopped, but we had the papers just justifying that I was basically going to Japan, so I had to take a plane.
We got to be out here. We have a reason to be out here.
At this time in France, you couldn't just go out without papers that could justify the fact that you're out of your house, basically.
We had nothing like that. It was a day of woke up, ate a relatively small breakfast, said my goodbyes, family and pets alike, and we drove to the airport, which was a very strange experience. You know, that knowledge of like you're on the way to do something that you've been kind of dreading almost, and now it's actually happening.
You've just been like dreaming of that for the past years or months, and that's happening, and you can't really realize that's happening. You're like, wait, I'm going to the airport.
It's happening. We're here.
But at the same time, I couldn't really realize I wasn't going to see my family for 8 months. So just saying goodbye was a bit awkward. My brain was just gone.
I was pretty tired on that day. but it also didn't very much set in for me like, oh, I'm going to be gone for a while. I think speaking from some of the other exchange students, we've all sort of reached that period of, oh man, we've got to do it for another 4 months now.
It felt like time flies, but at the same time, I'm not fluent in Japanese at all, and I don't understand anything. I would like to have real conversation with people, but we'll have to wait again.
Just a face-to-face conversation isn't something you realize you take for granted until you just aren't able to have one, a fluent face-to-face conversation.
And like English is my second language, and English is the second language of Japanese people. So when I can have a conversation in English, that's not fluent. Like, even when the Japanese I'm talking with have a pretty decent level of English, it still don't feel like the kind of deep conversation you could have with someone that actually speak the same language as you.
There's that missing element of, I guess, word creativity, where you don't really have to think about what you're saying and it just comes out and you can be as flowery as you want. But fortunately, we were placed in a hotel with a whole bunch of English-speaking exchange students from across the world.
For the quarantine.
Yes, Japan's mandatory quarantine for people coming in. It was, 50-something students all in one hotel?
That felt like it was an actual part of this whole trip. Like, that was only 15 days, but they matter as much as the past 4 months to me.
Very much so. The days there passed very slowly comparatively to what we're doing right now.
Yeah, we didn't have that routine thing in school and like just the life. That wasn't normal life. That was really weird.
Yeah, the chance of, well, not even the chance, the ability to step out of your room and go talk with somebody was, and not just anybody, somebody who spoke a language you understood or were capable in, and they're from somewhere completely different across the world.
Like just the fact of having a fluent interaction with someone from somewhere different, because not being able to do that right now with most Japanese people is really weird.
Yeah, the hotel was phenomenal, though. Our rooms left a little to be desired, but we got used to them after a while. They felt, is it just me, or did they feel like really personal? I got attached to my room, flaws and all, just because I knew it was mine.
Yeah, I like this room actually. Like, I think I was feeling more comfortable in this hotel room than I've been feeling in my bedroom for the past 4 months. That felt more like my room.
Yeah, it felt, and I'm not sure how or why, but it felt uniquely personal. This was the place where I spent time unwinding after hours-long conversations with, various people. This was where I saw them during the day, during our Zoom calls. But it was mine, and I really liked that.
There was this thing, like, at the same time, that kind of sucked to be in quarantine, but at the same time, we're like super excited to be in Japan, and we would go to the combini every night. We're just buying food. We had no idea what it was. That was this period of time where just everything in Japan felt like new.
Yeah, and the kombini is the Japanese word for convenience store, and there was one in our hotel, and that was everybody's favorite spot, was heading on over to the convenience store, seeing what snacks there were. There was ice cream, sodas,
Noodles. There was a lot of noodles.
There's a lot of noodles. There's shelves of yakisoba, ramen.
There was like these potato chips with chocolates.
Yeah, chocolate covered potato chips.
I would just buy everything I found that was weird.
There's definitely an element to snack culture, which is something I'd love to get into, but I'm not quite sure where to start.
I would say the first weeks with the Oz family are one of the most awkward thing I've ever experienced. Like you're just living with people you met like a few hours ago, and you're sleeping in their home, and you know you're gonna be there for a while, and those people are basically strangers.
It was uncomfortable knowing that, okay, I now live here too, but you very much felt as if you'd been inserted into somewhere that was it was already harmonious, I guess. It already worked, and now you were an outsider looking in. But sometimes I think back on that first day or so, or those first few days when everything felt very, when you get somewhere where you're supposed to live or be for a period of time, and it feels unfamiliar and kind of cold.
Yeah, and I'm right now I'm experiencing that again because like 2 days ago I changed family. So I'm again in this awkward situation where I'm living with people I barely know. I'm here in their house and I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm expected to do. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be here for the next 4 months.
You'll get into it once you start learning boundaries and whatnot, but that will come at a point in the future.
Yeah, and the point is, I was starting to feel comfortable with the family I had before. Like, it just felt like I was kind of part of the family at this point. I was used to the house. I was used to my routine. I had good interactions with my host parents. I was feeling just fine. But now I have this like integration periods all over again. Like this weird time where you're not feeling any comfortable, whatever you do.
Have you had some observations so far on being here? I understand you do photography and you've had some very nice shoots as of late. But have you noticed any things that are outwardly different or just interesting?
Oh, there are tons of things that are different. Pretty much every day I can find differences between Japan and France. Biggest difference, we already talked about it, that's the way they perceive the crisis of COVID-19. Just feel like we've not faced the same virus.
Yeah, and they only began rollout of their vaccine a few weeks ago. Even it's not even available across most of the country just because there isn't that need for it.
And they're still planning to have Olympics.
I've noticed a few things about the language. Namely, people. I have an English speaking friend. It's not although it's not exactly conversational, but it's good enough English so that we're able to learn from each other. But I've been asked the question, can you read this sentence? Or are you able to read this sentence several times now in regards to English sentences? And that's also been combined with, oh, I can't read this in regards to Japanese sentences. So I think the kanji system means that some some sentences, to those who just don't know kanji, are indecipherable. They just don't make sense. And that's really strange because in both of our languages, I guess we're able to really figure out what things mean from context alone.
Yeah, actually, the Japanese language completely changed not so long ago. So they have to study like classic Japanese, the Japanese before the language changed. And so that's completely different and they can't really understand it, basically. And the fact that they don't actually know all kanjis mean that for like really polite or kind of old Japanese, sometimes they just can't read it.
Which is strange because Old English is definitely quite different grammatically, spelling wise from current English, but I'm still able to understand it with no training whatsoever.
And the same go with French. Basically, we can understand books from like over 1,000 years ago. We can still understand what's written, and even if it's a bit different from the French we're speaking right now, you can still figure out pretty easily. Or Japanese can't even read it.
Yeah, that is astounding to me, really. And some of the shared words, the word gohan means both rice and meal. And just because the two have been synonymous for so long, they're just the same word at this point.
Yeah. But like there are so much words that have several meanings. Like hashi means chopsticks and bridge.
Yeah.
and kumo means spider and clouds.
Yeah.
And with the intonation, you're supposed to figure out what word it is.
The issue I've been having recently with the language is eld sounds like oshi and oishi. I really cannot hear the difference between those two, but one means, I think, to regret, and one means delicious. So that's something very difficult for the untrained ear to really pick out because I'm just not used to it.
That's already difficult when having a normal conversation, but with someone that have a facial mask on.
Yes.
That's horrible. Like you can't even try to figure out with the lips.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just have the sounds that are also just a bit modified by the mask. And like that's already hard, but with the mask, like, that's almost impossible to differentiate some sounds for me.
And there's no facial movement either that you can really see because a lot of talking is just the lower face. And masks make the learning a new language that is phonetically fairly different from your own makes it quite difficult to really figure out what people are saying.
Yeah, the way facial masks just modify the interactions with people make the learning of Japanese basically even harder. And Japanese is not an easy language anyway.
That it is not. The grammar, wow. I'm definitely going to be taking classes on it when I'm back in America because this makes little to no sense.
What are you talking about grammar? Like, there is no grammar, basically.
Yeah, that's another fun fact, is that virtually so long as all the elements of the sentence you want to say are present in the sentence, you can say them in whatever order you want, which sounds really liberating, but for someone who's used to rather strict grammar rules and irregular verbs and the absolute mess of a language that English is, it is a very, very disconcerting thing to encounter.
Yeah, and there is this like particles thing, and we don't have that in either of our languages, and I can't really figure out where to use them and what does it really mean, because that's hard to translate to our languages. So there's just some concept in the Japanese language that are really hard to understand. And I haven't had any Japanese classes since I'm in Japan. So I'm just trying to figure out everything by myself. And that's hard. Like that's so hard.
There's a point where you need to be able to ask someone questions. And without that, it's really hard to get somewhere. And that's what we're both encountering right now is, well, we need to ask someone questions. But do you have any hopes or plans for like the next few months of our trip? Because that's all we've got left.
Yeah, like 4 months. This feel like short, but at the same time, a long time.
Yeah, the last 4 have flown by.
They've been really, really fast, but at the same time, it felt like a lot of stuff happened.
Oh, like what?
Well, it's been 4 months we have been in Japanese high school. We eventually made friends, and I'm now in my second US family, so that's a lot of change. And we're like a week ago to change grade in Japanese high school. So
Oh yeah, we were both second years, correct?
no, I was in first year.
Okay, I was in second year at my high school, so just in about a week or so, I'm going to be a third year, which is virtually Japanese senior year. That'll be interesting to try and navigate with little to no language capability.
Yeah, yeah, especially because we're gonna have a lot of exams, right? I mean, second grader and third grader have a lot of exams, so.
Mm-hmm. I did somewhat all right on the exams that I could understand, that I'd been there for the material to be taught, but mostly those were the ones that gave me questions in English.
I only took English tests because I couldn't understand any other subject, basically.
There were the math tests, but most of the questions for those were written in Japanese, and as such, I was not exactly able to figure out what the question wanted me to do, even if I understood how to do the math in front of me, which even then was not very often.
Yeah, I just didn't took any other test than English, not even maths or any science thing, because I'm not good at maths. But it's really hard for us to just understand what's happening because, like, that's high school student level. Like in the language, we barely understand.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to even navigate through because you're not exactly told a whole lot. Uh, I recall at one point you were just sort of abandoned by your classmates and left to wander around the school.
Yeah, I just spent like half an hour in the bathroom because I didn't knew where to go, so I just sat there and and wait.
And I've had times where entire schedules have changed and I've just walked into the wrong class because nobody told me.
Yeah. Oh, there's this time where, as usual, I woke up at 6. I took the train for 1 hour and finally just got to the school. And then they told me the classes were starting at like 11.
Nice.
But I didn't knew it because I can't read the schedule.
Let's get into, I suppose, a quick recap of some of the most interesting things we've done. I suppose I'll go first. So I visited an authentic Edo period castle, which, to my knowledge, there are only 3 remaining that are original foundations, original construction, and whatnot. Because at some point during the Meiji era, they were all destroyed or burnt down as to consolidate power in the country, and one of which is actually in my city. And so I, on occasion, get to visit it. And it's a very impressive thing to see, just to be around. Those walls are something to reckon with. Additionally, I've visited the best, what has been rated the best museum or the best Japanese garden in the entire nation of Japan for the last 17 years in a row. Um, that being said, I visited it in winter when there weren't exactly a whole lot of blooms or plants to see, so I hope to visit it again in the coming weeks.
That's actually pretty funny because I believe that in my city, Matsumoto, there's a castle as well that is really famous, and that happened to be an original castle as well.
Wow, we both lucked out.
And I think that's one of the most famous castle across Japan, and I believe it's on the cover of a manga I read.
Oh, and which one was that?
I think that was like orange. That's like Ramen's manga.
So was it just the visit to that castle for you? Have you done anything else?
Actually, I've just been outside of the castle to take pictures, but I haven't got inside since it was winter and it was way too cold in the castle to just visit it.
Okay.
But I'm planning to go in the next weeks because Sakura.
Yeah, of course, this is, at the time of recording, this is Sakura season, which is cherry blossoms. And I said before I left for Japan, if I could be here and see, if I could only be here for a day and I saw the Sakura in Japan, my entire trip would be worth it. And now that I have, it's been worth it.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest symbols of Japan, right? With Mount Fuji and all.
Yeah, there's Mount Fuji and there's Sakura. And
I already had the opportunity to take pictures of Mount Fuji. That turned out
yeah,
really, really good, I think.
they certainly were. Go check Hugo out on @hugo.curtil on Instagram to see those photos. Yeah, incredible. Truly, truly incredible.
Thanks. Maybe.
So, I think for the final few months, all I'm looking to do is just improve my general Japanese skills because while I feel I can hold my own in a conversation right now, they have to be very situational. And I'd like to be able to expand into some variety of conversational fluency, in addition to perhaps visiting the garden again. And apart from that, I haven't really thought too far into the future, but I'm thinking small for now. I'm just going to roll with what the days throw at me.
One of my goal for the next few months is improving my Japanese as well. But I guess that's what every other exchange student is looking for right now. And maybe traveling a little bit if it's possible, but COVID. And I want to go back to this point of view with the Mount Fuji and the pagoda. Now that the sakura has blossomed, because I really want to get this shot with Mount Fuji, sakura, and the pagoda. That's like the perfect.
That's the perfect Japanese photo.
Yeah. So I'm looking to do that during this season of sakura blossoming.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe traveling a little more in the future, seeing Osaka and going back to Tokyo if it's possible.
Tokyo.
But that's really uncertain.
Yeah, Tokyo is, if you've never been, the city never ends. You can get up to the highest place you can and look in any direction, and it's just city. Uh, it is astounding when you think about the number of people, the number of buildings, the amount of tons of concrete, the millions of tons of concrete that must have been used to make this place.
Like there is something really magical about Tokyo. I'm in love with this city. I could just spend my entire life there, just taking pictures.
And you wouldn't see all of it. That's the weird part to think about.
The first time I've been to Tokyo, I've been there for like nine days, and I felt like I had seen like a few percent of the city.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of frustrating to spend more than a week there and feeling like you've seen nothing.
Yeah. We'll eventually have to return there for our flights home, which hopefully we'll be able to see each other at that point, along with the other exchange students for one last time before we all fly back to our respective corners of the world.
Yeah, that would be a nice meeting before the flights.
Yeah, heading back home. That's a weird thought to think about, but it's sooner than we think. So we've just got to make the best of what we got.
I don't really want to go back home.
Place feels like it should be forever. Still not used to the fact that I'm here.
Me neither.
So, is that all? Think we've covered all our bases for Oh Man, We're in Japan? So, this has been the first episode of Sunday String of Consciousness. Thank you all so much for joining us. It's been an adventure setting this up, getting this written, edited.
New episode every 2 weeks on Sunday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time.
Hope to see you there. So long. We'll catch you in the next episode.
See ya.